Which type of stretching is good and which should be avoided? Do you know how many types of stretchings are there? In this video, we will be covering the various types of stretching and when to use these stretching, when it will be effective and when not. Do you know that yoga practices often combine static and dynamic stretching techniques to enhance range of motion, flexibility and overall mobility? So do not forget to watch the video till the end if you are a yoga teacher, practitioner or sports enthusiast. Namaste friends. My name is Ritesh and I am a senior teacher at Yoga FX International Yoga Teacher Training Academy. And I'm really thrilled and excited to present you a series of anatomy and physiology lectures. We really hope that you enjoy and please feel free to keep sending your emails if you have any questions and really looking forward to seeing you soon. Let's get started. Stretching. Stretching improves your mobility, flexibility and range of motion. Learn the main types of stretching plus how and when to do them. There are a lot of incorrect information about stretching. It can leave you with more questions than answers. Is ballistic stretching bad? What's the difference between active stretching and dynamic stretching? Or are they the same thing? It's understandable if you're scratching your head. So, what is the type of sports you play? Start by determining what you hope to get out of a stretching session. Then learn the different types of stretching. Consider this your definitive guide to stretching. Use it to find the best type of stretching for your specific needs. Why should you stretch? Before you can fully understand the types of stretching, you need to know about the actual benefits of stretching. You might stretch as a part of an exercise routine to help prevent injury, reduce post-workout, soreness, and loosen up. You may want to improve your flexibility. Finally, do that split or touch your toes. You might have a lower back pain and stretch in an attempt to relieve it. Or you may want to get back to moving with greater ease. When, where, and how stretching might benefit you depends on whether you're talking about mobility, flexibility, or range of motion. They are not the same things. Let us first clear these terms. Let us understand what flexibility is. Flexibility. Flexibility refers to the range of motion at a specific joint. This differs from person to person. And while people often refer to flexibility in a way that implies more is better, that's not always the case. A given joint can be overly flexible or have limited flexibility based on factors like age, gender, bone shape and position, medical condition, injuries, muscle and fat amounts, and even hormones. The average person doesn't need to become overly flexible. While extreme flexibility may be fun for nailing that perfect Instagram-worthy pose, being too flexible for your specific day-to-day movement needs may actually make you more prone to injury. When a joint is overly flexible, it becomes less stable, and that makes it more likely to move in a way it's not supposed to. Instead of striving for contortionist level flexibility, aim to attain or maintain proper range of motion at a given joint for your specific body and needs. Range of motion. Range of motion is essentially how the movement of a joint is measured For instance, if you start a bicep curl with your arm fully extended, you should be able to flex your elbow, draw the dumbbell past the 90-degree angle and closer to your shoulder. That's a full range of motion. Everyone has a different range. In the example above, how far your curl depends upon factors like the bicep size. Bigger muscles make it harder to bring the dumbbell closer to your shoulder. Elbow injury, and if you have other connective tissue or joint issues. If your range of motion is limited, it means that the joint isn't moving to the expected level. In that case, your goal for stretching may be increasing the range of motion of the joint. The main types of stretching done correctly. Stretching can help improve your range of motion for a specific joint. If you increase your range of motion, you'll have increased flexibility. And that ultimately leads to better mobility at that joint. Keep in mind that flexibility is joint specific. Just because you are very flexible at one joint does not mean you are flexible at another. There are a variety of ways you can stretch, which ultimately fall into 4 accepted categories of stretching, as defined by American College of Sports Medicine. Dynamic stretching, often referred to as a dynamic warm-up or cool-down. Static and isometric stretching done actively or passively. Proprioceptive neuromuscular facilitation. In short, it's known as PNF. Stretching. The last one is the ballistic stretching. So let us first talk about dynamic stretching. Now, dynamic stretching is one of the most widely accepted and preferred forms of stretching, especially when included as a part of warm-up to a workout routine. Dynamic stretching involves moving a joint through a full range of motion for a minute or two. You will touch the end of your range of motion but won't push past the point of comfort. During a dynamic stretch, the muscles surrounding the joints are engaged, increasing blood flow to the area while helping prepare the muscles and joints for more rigorous exercises. Stretches should mimic the activity or sports you are about to perform. For example, I love to play badminton, so I would want to move through legs work like skipping, jumping, moving sideways, arm movements like circles. I would recommend 4 to 5 stretches to be performed for a 1 to 2 minute each. It's an appropriate form of stretching for people of all ages and fitness levels because it's easily modified to an individual's personal range of motion limitation. It's like the Pavan Muktasan series for joint rotation by Bihar School of Yoga or a Vinyasa flow, where there is continuous movement. It's particularly helpful for athletes who often have to achieve a larger range of motion while under more significant joint and soft tissue stress. This makes it important for those structures to be primed for movement. So, the conclusion is that dynamic stretching is good before any athletic event to increase your heart rate and warm up and loosen the muscle. So, it means high muscle temperature and low muscle stiffness. It is an active, controlled, and repetitive movement of muscles. It also targets various muscle groups at once. Doing a few dynamic stretches will also address any imbalances you have in range of motion. Dynamic stretching improves running and jumping, performance in sports like basketball, racket sports, marathon, etc. According to February 2012 review in the International Journal of Sports Physical Therapy. Now, let us talk about static stretching and isometric stretching. So, static stretching is ideal for cool down because it allows you to lengthen and relax muscles. When you were stretching in gym, class, or after an athletic event, you likely did static stretching, aka passive stretching. In fact, when you think of stretching, it's probably what comes to mind. In static stretching, you lengthen your muscles and other connective tissues and hold that lengthened position for a given amount of time. Basically, you stretch and relax in that position. Now, static stretching has long been common practice and it can help improve your joint range of motion. My recommendation would be try doing passive stretching for activating the parasympathetic nervous system, which is associated with relaxation and recovery. In addition to the static stretching you do on your own, you can also do partner-assisted static stretching, in which you use a tool like a strap or a partner to help you stretch a muscle, like the way we do in Iyengar yoga or with the help of a bolster or a yoga ball or a yoga belt. Now, let's try to understand what is isometric stretching. Isometric stretching. So isometric stretching is a form of static stretching, meaning it does not use motion. It involves the resistance of muscle group through the tensing of the stretched muscle. It is very demanding and should not be performed more than once a day. It is more effective than passive or active stretching and is a fast way to develop static or passive flexibility. The most common ways to provide the needed resistance for an isometric stretch are to apply resistance manually to one's limb, to have a partner apply the resistance, or to use a wall for resistance. The process of isometric stretching is to first assume the position for the static stretch. Next, the muscle being stretched should be tensed for 10 to 15 seconds, resisting against some force, such as a partner or a wall. The last step is to relax the muscle for at least 20 seconds and then repeat. An example of an isometric stretch is to have a partner hold your leg up while you try to force your leg back to the ground. When to use static stretching? Because of its relaxing effect, static stretching is best used during a cool down, after a workout, along with deep breathing. The only time you shouldn't use static stretching is before a workout because it has been shown to increase injury risk. In fact, a March 2000 review in the Scandinavian Journal of Medicine and Science in Sports suggests that static stretching can negatively affect muscular performance. I do not use static stretching when I play badminton or when I go out for cycling. The best during that time would be dynamic stretch. PNF stretching, short for Proprioceptive Neuromuscular Facilitation. PNF is generally considered a less intense form of isometric stretching, in which you contract your stretched muscles more gently and for a shorter duration of time, because it supports flexibility, range of motion, and muscle strengthening. It is a popular protocol in injury rehabilitation. This refers to a set of techniques that involve table stretching and the help of a certified stretch therapist. PNF stretching promotes the restoration of a weakened or injured muscle as resistance is provided while keeping everything in place. As the contraction is released, the stretch pose is being held in the place for about 20 to 30 seconds and another 30 to 40 seconds for the muscles to relax completely. So the question comes, when to use PNF? If you are not quite ready for full-on isometric stretching, start with PNF. It's best used to support recovery and help prevent injury after workouts. An April 2012 review in Human Kinetics backs him up, finding that PNF works to maintain and increase range of motion. In addition to its recovery and flexibility benefits, it can also help ward off muscle aches and even promote healthy posture. Ballistic stretching. Though every method of stretching has a proper time and place, there is one method experts recommend avoiding it altogether. Ballistic stretching, with this approach, you essentially bounce in and out of a stretch. Think of it as pulling yourself in and out of the stretch rapidly. Trying to push yourself past the limits of the muscles lengthen. The issue with ballistic stretching is that it is not only ineffective at increasing flexibility and mobility, but it can also cause injury. The same February 2012 review in the International Journal of Sports Physical Therapy confirms this, stating that ballistic stretching is no longer recommended because of its link to injuries. We really hope that you enjoyed it, and please feel free to send any questions that you may have. See you soon. Take care. Keep smiling. Namaste.